What is going on, Rotogrinders? Dean here at Dean 78904. If you want to get all technical on me, that is the DFS handle around the industry. 5:30 on the East Coast, 2:30 West Coast, 4:30 Tennessee time. So, of course, it is time for the flagship show here at Rotogrinders, called Grinderslive. Joining me today, he does not have a case of the Mondays. You do such things as NASCAR and the morning grind. It's Stevie TPFL. What's up, Stevie? How are things in your world? That's a cool hat, by the way.
Thank you, sir. I mean, it's Monday. Just chilling. 7-game slate. Perfect slate to get back in the baseball action, take the weekends off. So, excited to play some DFS baseball and, break down the slate. There's a lot of different options as far as bats go. Pitching is but I mean, it's a fun slate for a 7-game slate.
I'm fixated on that hat, by the way. So it looks like Baltimore Oriole colors, but the logo suggests they're a part of the Milwaukee Brewers organization. Am I close? Is it one of those two?
I have no idea. It's a minor league hat.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I figured that much. But we got a beer can of some sort. No, not a beer can, but a glass of beer, a beverage.
They should really put their name on the inside of these hats. I always forget the team names.
But yeah, I don't know if it's Baltimore or it's Milwaukee. Maybe someone in the chat will let us know. I have no idea. One of these days, they have a lot of fun names in the minor leagues. Lots of teams we name. So it's probably something goofy that we're not aware of. But and I don't get to any minor league ballparks these days, unfortunately. Well, Charleston, I used to go there. That was good times. Bill Murray's a part owner of the team. He would show up on occasion. As an aside, let's say hello to chat. What up, chat? Like, subscribe, turn on notifications, turn on the bell, all that good stuff. Fire off some questions. Myself and Stevie said it. It's a 7-gamer, so we'll have plenty of time to entertain questions from the chat. Whatever's on your mind, we're going to break down the slate from a pitcher perspective, from a stack perspective. We'll go around the horn really quickly. We'll knock around the questions from chat. Devin, fabulous multitasking extraordinaire producer. Not only is he compiling the questions, I'm not sure if you saw it, Stevie, but Devin had himself a little bit of a takedown, a good ROI takedown this weekend. He'll take the victory lap soon enough. It was 4 figures. Good for Devin. I think he was in for like $20 or something like that. Just kind of messing around. I saw him maybe 1,500, something like that. I know he banked. He finished first, whatever that tournament happened to be. So congrats to him. He's compiling those questions when you guys are firing them off. As far as this slate, there's no elite pitchers. There's some good pitchers we'll talk about in a second. Got a roster 2 on DK, but it's from an overall thought as far as the slate, it's going to be really, really heavy as far as Boston, as far as Toronto. That line, I believe, has moved up now to 11.5. 2 pedestrian pitchers. I don't know. Pavetta's weak. You'll talk about that. That's your team, and I'm sure you'll be honest as far as your thoughts as far how you think Pavetta is. Positive ballpark as well. I saw it at 11.5 somewhere. Now it's down to 11. It does have also a extreme hitters umpire in Fenway as well. Thomas Hatch on the other side, just a prospect that never really panned out. He's creeping up on 27, so it's probably not going to happen. This is his first start of the year in the majors. Wasn't very good last year. Not a lot of strikeouts. Okay, as far as ERA in the minors, but you're not facing dudes like JD Martinez and Rafael Devers in the minors either. How are we attacking this slate? Your general thoughts, because it's not going to shock anybody when we see heavy ownership on Boston and Toronto, and it's not hard to get them because they're not really paying up for necessarily the biggest of pitchers, depending on.
Western Michigan Whitecaps, AA Detroit Tigers.
Whoa, Detroit!
Looked it up on Google. There you go. Overall, this slate, when you're looking at it, it's like, on DraftKings, there's like 3 guys that I want to pitch. On FanDuel, there's like 2 guys that I want to pitch. And there's like 6 or 7 teams to kind of target as far as stacks. And I mean, that's typically what happens when you don't have a lot of pitching options that you like, right? You have a lot of bats that you like. So I think getting the right mixture of like pitching and bats and yeah, congrats, Devin. You could take my spot. I'll go take a nap. You could break down the slate. I mean, you're on a roll here, so I mean, you got it. But I mean, yeah, this is an interesting slate. Have we seen anything on like Joe Ross pitch count yet? I looked earlier today and still didn't see anything. I don't know if we're gonna actually get anything or not.
Yeah, he hasn't pitched since. I mean, I think he had some side sessions. I could be wrong about this. Let me just go ahead and check. Reinstated. He last pitched on 7/4 on the 4th of July. So he has not pitched the majors in 22 days. But didn't he have like a side session or two? But it's interesting because I haven't really considered rostering Ross, and I'm not looking necessarily to pick on him a ton. It's one of those games that's happening, and I like some pieces in that game, but I don't think I'm getting there. And I don't think I have to get Ross is kind of where I'm at. So I didn't really dig in that enough. But I wonder what the bat says. Carter usually has a predictor as far as expected pitches thrown. And I would imagine he kind of sort of bakes that in. So I'll take a peek at that really quickly. But you said you had 2 or 3 pitchers that you're considering on each site. Who do you want to start with? Who do you want to feature? Is it Ohtani? Is he on the board?
Yeah, I think Otani is the best pitcher on the slate. The matchup, just looking at the matchup overall, this is a weak Colorado offense. Ohtani is a guy with a big strikeout rate. When we're looking for overall ceiling, he's always someone that we should be looking at. Obviously, when you're looking at this spot, it's like the bottom of the order is just there's so many strikeouts here for Colorado. So I think Ohtani is in a great spot. You're obviously always worried about walks, but really only 2 guys on this team walk a lot. And CJ Cron is a very patient type of hitter that walks a lot. So I think this is a great spot to target Ohtani. And honestly, on the other side, Marquez, he's my second favorite pitcher on this slate. When you're looking at the Angels lineup overall, it's really bad. Ohtani, Justin Upton, and Walsh are scary, but the bottom of this order stinks. You got Mayfield, Eaton, Suzuki. Marsh has some pop, but like he's even striking out high in the minors. I mean, Fletcher's not a guy that's going to take you deep. I think this is a great spot for both these pitchers. I think this is a game to target for pitching overall. And the last time I checked, it was at like 8 total. I really like the under on this game.
So my bold call today in the expert survey, I know you wrote on that as well. My bold call was there is no more than 3 runs are scored in this game. So I like the under as well. Ohtani, the tricky one. Well, you were talking about the Colorado lineup. It's not officially out. That's just a projected lineup. We'll see how it goes down. Right. But it's spoiler alert. It's not going to be good. Sure, they grab a DH, so that's something. But like you said, if Hilliard cracks the lineup, that's a lot of K's sitting there. Nunez as well. 2 lefties there against Ohtani. 1 negative, 1 hit like against Ohtani is that he has an extreme. I think it's an extreme hitters umpire.
It wasn't announced yet.
I saw it in the bat. I was just sort of scrolling and I saw it in the bat. So I assume it's appearing in the lineup HQ right now. Also, let's go take a quick gander at that. As I was looking up Ross and his projected pitches thrown, which by the way, Ross projected pitches thrown according to the bat right now. This stuff does change as information comes in and all that. Is 67. So there you go. That's his PPC, which stands for, what are those initials? Projected. I'm pulling up the legend now. The projected pitch count. There you go. 67 currently. 91 is the ceiling. 70 is the kind of the baseline for Ross. So probably not a lot. And now that gives us some time here to scroll on the old lineup HQ. If you guys want to scroll the lineup HQ at your own leisure, how do you do that? You get yourself $10 off the first month. Then we'll go ahead and drop the link in chat. You can get just the baseball stuff, just baseball, or you can get football, baseball, basketball, hockey, soccer, esports, MMA. I'm sure I've missed a couple of things. Everything but NASCAR. Stevie will take care of that for you a la carte. We are scrolling and where we want to find as far as our extremes today. And yeah, so we have Hatch and Pavetta with an extreme hitters umpire, Miley and Hendricks with extreme pitchers umpire. And it's not in the lineup HQ, but according to the bat, at least, we have Ohtani with Gary Davis, who's an extreme hitters umpire. Not ideal. Ohtani, one of the biggest walk guys on this slate, biggest K rate on the slate, facing a Colorado team. If you look at the Oh boy, they're what I wrote it up today in the expert survey. It was their WRC plus against righties, active roster 69. That is not nice. What does that mean? That means the 100 is the baseline. That means they are 31% worse than the average team. They are like 15 points worse than the second worst team on the season, WRC plus, which factors in ballpark. Of course, they're going to hit on that by playing half the games in cores. Also, these players have never seen Ohtani, right? The only one that's seen Ohtani so far is Crone. Everybody else, he seems like a guy, like it takes at least a couple of bats to figure out what he's doing there. And I can see Ohtani just striking out, 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 or maybe even 11. And I don't see anybody else really doing that this slate. And the other thing, Stevie, I'll stop in a second. The other thing about Ohtani is, and I looked this up myself too. I was like, I don't know if I can play Ohtani in cash. I don't know if I trust Ohtani. He's so volatile. He's all up and down, and he has those blow-up games, right? You know how many games this season he's gone less than 4 innings?
1.
Yeah, just 1. Just that one against the Yankees where we played him.
We need to go do some trivia. Like I've been on fire with these guesses lately. Let's go. We gotta go find a trivia bar.
I mean, I was angling it away. It certainly wasn't going to be like 9 or whatever, but yeah. Otherwise, you check out the game log. 6 last game, 7 before that, 0.2 against the Yankees. Yeah, he was terrible. Before that, 6, 6, 5, 6, 6, 4 and 2/3, 7, 5, 5. Even in games where he's walked 6 guys, he went 5 innings. And this Rocky team is terrible. It's a hit to some degree as far as the umpire behind the plate. I don't care about that a ton with certain pitchers, but with a guy like Ohtani, I do. Yeah. And you mentioned Marquez on the other side, like that Angel team, still waiting for Mike Trout. Obviously they got Upton back, but it's, really not this great team, obviously. That's my current pairing, my shell lineup on DraftKings. That's what I currently have. I have Ohtani and I have German Marquez, and I still pretty much get all the bats I want in my, quote unquote cash lineup, and I'll be a little different in tournaments, obviously. Do you have any other thoughts as far as Marquez? Pretty good K rate, and the walks a little too many guys, but this Angel team doesn't walk at all. Fletcher does not walk at all. Iglesias, not a big walker. Max Stassi, 5.2K as far as his walk percent. And we talk about the Angel lineup all the time. Like you said it, like they don't strike out. This one strikes out. This Angel lineup strikes out a lot. Upton at 29%, Walsh at 25%, Marsh 31, small sample, but he's expected to strike out a lot. He's a prospect, like a legit prospect, but still kind of figuring things out. He's still plenty young. 30. What are we looking at as far as the overall K percent? 23.2%. That's because Fletcher and Iglesias really bring that number down. But yeah, those are my 2 favorite pitchers in the slate when you consider salary.
It doesn't add Ohtani's 30% K rate either, though, right? Doesn't he have like a 30% K rate as a hitter?
Oh, yeah, he's not in the lineup. He is in the lineup, but he's not in our plate IQ because it probably drives him nuts trying to figure out how to make that work when he's pitching and hitting. But Ohtani is batting second, and yes,
and he has a big K rate. Yeah,
sure.
So I mean, yeah, there's a lot of strikeouts here for Marquez. Like his price on DraftKings at 8.4 is super fair. Ohtani being 9.2. They're both kind of expensive on FanDuel. We got the single entry series going on over there, the $100 and the $2 this week for the single entry series. And with the pricing the way that it is on FanDuel, it's really easy to play either one of these guys over there as well. There's some really cheap bats. Like Rooker is batting second. We'll talk about him. Boat is back for Chicago. He's batting 6th, but he's minimum salary at second base. So there's a lot of cheap bats on FanDuel, just like DraftKings has some cheap bats today. Let's talk Garcia, Dean. He's
pricey.
Yeah, it's so weird to like even consider his price. But I mean, he's probably one of the safer pitchers. Like he's probably a little bit safer than Marquez.
Yeah, but like also he doesn't go very deep in games, even when he's pitching well. Last time out, 79 pitches, before that 88. 93, 96. I'm trying to see I'm curious what the bat has projected for as far as his pitches. 88, which is like fine. And he's facing Seattle, obviously a terrible team. And he's got a decent shot of grabbing the W there. Good offense backing him. And we don't care a ton about that, but win equity matters to some degree. I think he's a better play on FanDuel than he is on DK, just when you're kind of matching prices up. Ohtani's 1,000 more on FanDuel. On DK, Garcia is 1,000 more than him. You can just kind of play the salaries, but of course ownership's going to reflect that as well. But he's good. He's a good pitcher. He's never seen this price before, as far as I remember. Well, he was 10-4 last time on DK, still 10-4 on DK. Seattle's not a good offense. We can make it work. It's not that hard. It feels like an overspend, but there's also, especially on DraftKings, we'll talk about it. I assume Jimenez is going to crack the lineup. Eloy Jimenez expected back. He's 2.5K on DK. That's really, really cheap. Duran is 3K, really, really cheap. Tucker is 3.4, which is ridiculously cheap. It's not hard to get basically whatever you want, even with the best pitchers. Punt a guy here, punt a guy there. You basically kind of fill out your lineup. So like if you were to rank those three as far as Garcia, Ohtani, Marquez, does it change depending on the site?
No, not for me. Not with pricing the way that it is today. I still go like, I mean, when I'm considering ownership, I go Marquez, Ohtani, Garcia. But when I'm just ranking like raw points, I probably go Ohtani, Marquez, Garcia. But I think Garcia is still third for me. But I was a little shocked by like projected ownership having him like 35+%. I really didn't think a lot of people were going to pay for him today. It's not like he projects to be like this stellar play. And then Eloy is batting fourth, by the way. The White Sox lineup's out. He's back. It's awesome to see.
Anderson, Vaughn, Abreu, Eloy Jimenez, Moncada, Engel, Hamilton, Mendick, and Zavala is your Chicago White Sox lineup. The Seattle Mariners are out as well. Crawford, Haniger, Seager, France, Raleigh, Torrens, Kelnick, Long, and Bowers. So, so there you go. Chicago. That lineup looks so much better with Eloy back.
It does.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't spectacular in the minors for what it's worth. He had a stint there in the minors, but he banged out some homers, and he's going to strike out plenty. But he just seems really, really cheap, and he's facing Minor, who will yield power to righties. And I know it's not a great ballpark for homers, but when he gets a hold of it, he's a big dude. He's like 6'4", 250 or whatever he is. When he gets a hold of it, it doesn't really matter what ballparks he's in. And 2.5K on DK, he's going to be popular for sure. Just kind of make stuff work, and probably a cash game staple. Do what you want in tournaments. But yeah, I'm excited to see him back. He came back much faster than expected. Like, wasn't he projected to be out for basically most of the season? So good for him.
It is basically most of the season, right? We're past the All-Star break. We're on the second half. I mean, yeah, I mean, I didn't think we'd see him back this early either. But we had a question in chat, and I just wanted to touch on it really quick. And it was a lot about Mike Minor, and I'm still blown away by like how much love this guy is getting today. Projection models like him, people across the industry like him. Like the Chicago White Sox are a top 5 team in baseball against left-handed pitching in almost every statistic. They do strike out a lot, don't get me wrong, but they're really good against left-handed pitching. And Mike Minor, this is a dude with a 5x FIP and a 40% hard hit rate. He strikes out lefties, but we just read the lineup off. What is there, one lefty?
There are 0 lefties.
Yeah, so I mean, Mike Minor is a no for me today, especially at this ownership. He's getting a lot of love today, and I get it. Like, it's a smaller slate, but I can't do it, man. I was just interested. Like, I was more curious of just like, what are your thoughts here when it comes to Mike Minor?
Well, that's the thing. It kind of bleeds into like the Minor and Pineda conversation, and like I know projection models are saying to play those guys, and I know pitching has been kind of volatile this year.
Terrible.
I don't think I'm playing either one of those. And I have my thoughts about Minnesota as an organization in general. And I think I don't know if it's a hot take or not, but we're being told, or I'm seeing some like Donaldson is being spit out as a guy that people want to play. Sano as well too. Kepler leading off, I believe was leading off today. And I'm lukewarm at best in that Minnesota side. More times than not, you play Minnesota, that they've disappointed. That organization, they've had some injuries. They offered Buxton a salary contract extension. He's not going to sign it. They might actually move him. Donaldson's going to be moved. Cruz was already moved. They're almost definitely going to move Barrios. Like it's a dead organization right now. I don't want to bet on that. I know they're facing Manning, a prospect who's mostly got his face punched in since coming in. But my general, and I don't know if this is a hot take or not, I'm not exactly sure where he's at. But what I've seen in the industry is that some people like Minnesota, and I actually might play Manning on DK if I really want to open salary up as my SB2. That's something I'm considering, and I'm going to be less on the field on the Minnesota side, just Minnesota in general. And Pineda, if you want to say it's a correlation, however you want to say, as far as lack of sticky stuff, but if you've seen his Ks of late, they just absolutely plummeted. And, you know, Pineda, of course, has a history of using, you know, all these guys. It's not like fair to single him out because all these guys to various degrees have done some things. But yeah, like Pineda at 6'9", and he's got a reasonable price on FanDuel. And like you can kind of pair them together, Pineda and Minor. And Minor at 8.3 versus Chicago, like, and Marquez is 8.4. Like I can't do that. I'm not doing that. But other people, maybe. It sounds like we agree that that's a bad idea as far as, and if I'm running 150, I'm not running 150. Maybe I get like a smidge, a little piece, but that's not happening for me. I'm making like 8 lineups on DK. Yeah. So just pair them together. Minor and Pineda. It sounds like you're not a fan of either.
No, Pineda's been terrible ever since like they started checking for substance on like, you know, like look at his numbers. Like he's one of the guys that have dropped off the most. And like this is a guy that has been known to use like pine tar and sticky stuff to get a more of a feel of the baseball. So I mean, I'm out on Pineda. I would rather play Dallas Keuchel than Minor or Pineda. Like, and Dallas Keuchel is not a big strikeout guy. So I don't want to play any of these guys. This is that whole conversation I was having about like it's Ohtani and Marquez for me, especially on 2-pitcher sites. If I was going to punt, maybe Matt Manning. I mean, probably not. I get the appeal as far as like Manning goes, but I don't know if I could do that either.
You got an overpriced Hendricks? You don't want an overpriced Hendricks, do you?
No, Wade Miley and Kyle Hendricks are somewhat interesting with Phil Cousy behind the plate, man. I don't know. That's super. It's such an interesting spot. They're both way overpriced. I don't love Hendricks. Wade Miley, this lineup is very right-handed heavy, but I mean, there's strikeouts in this lineup too. So, I mean, I don't even think like if you're playing a lot of tournaments that going some Wade Miley to be different is crazy. I like that idea way more than playing like Mike Minor. They're basically the same price. So I much rather would have Wade Miley, but overall, again, I built 3 lineups and all 3 of them on DraftKings have Ohtani and Marquez. Like I'm not trying to hide what I'm doing today. Like this is how I'm attacking the slate. I want to pay up at pitching. I want to get these 2 guys. We have a $2,500 catcher that we're going to talk about where we can punt. We have a second baseman that's cheap. We have a couple outfielders. Like there's plenty of cheap bats to make these 2 guys work. So, I mean, I'm just out. Like I'll narrow down my pitching pool, Dean, and I'll just get different a little bit with the bats. I think that's how I'm going to approach this slate.
I'm pulling up our ownership stuff for pitchers, DK specific, got a roster 2, obviously. We got Ohtani at 44%. That's a big number for a guy that, yes, he can be volatile and he does have an extreme, you know, hitter's umpire. And I did kind of run down, and I know 4 innings. I saw somebody in chat talk about it. 4 innings is not ideal. But, like, you know, sometimes you roster Ohtani, it's like, oh, man, if he's a disaster in the first inning, that might be it. And we've seen it once, just once. And otherwise, he's kind of sort of somewhat, I don't want to use the word salvage, but wasn't a complete disaster, I guess you can say. 44% for Ohtani, 36% for Garcia. It's like Minor at 30%. Pineda at 24 and Marquez at 27. Like, to me, it's so clearly Marquez in that grouping. And it sounds like you agree as well. And if those are close to accurate, I just do not want Minor at 30%. I do not want Pineda at 24%. And then like Hendricks is overpriced. He's 6%. Manning at 4% is kind of sort of somewhat interesting to me. I mean, I'm not rostering Keuchel. I know you talk about rather having Keuchel. I don't have to make that decision. Like I can just say neither. You know, Howard just doesn't pitch deep enough for me. You know, he's also not been good. Eventually he's going to be good, but I don't think he's good just yet. Pavetta, no chance. Thomas Hatch. I know he's super cheap, but he does not look like he's ready for the majors. This is not a soft landing spot like his first start of the season. You know, in Fenway, you know, Boston team, it's been hot. They just, you know, they beat up the Yankees this weekend. I'm sure you enjoyed that.
You mean when they were getting no hit through 7 and won the game? Yeah, I probably enjoyed that a little bit.
Well, they no hit through. I know they crushed in the 8th inning. They were no hit throughout the entire game until the 8th inning.
They were no hit through 7.
Wow,
so disappointing. I'm sure for all you Yankee fans.
They were just rope-a-doping them. Yeah, and that's it. Is there anything else to be said as far as pitchers, or shall we move on to talk about some stacks? And of course, if there's somebody you guys want us to elaborate on, by all means, fire off the question in chat. We'll do our best Devin's going to compile that and he'll join the show later on. We want to answer as many questions as possible, but I got nothing else as far as pitchers. There's nobody that I feel like amazing about. But we're all looking at the same thing, and we all have the same slate to work with, and this is what we have. And I'm with you. I like Ohtani. I like Marquez. And I like Garcia if I can get there, more so on Fanduel than on DK. And if I have to punt, I'm just going to go all the way with Manning and on DK and just get all the bats in the world. I'm okay with that. That's basically my pitcher pool.
Yeah, I mean, my pitcher pool is Marquez and Ohtani.
All right, let's talk stacks before we go around the horn really quickly. I find so much better conversation just kind of talk stacks, especially on a 7-gamer. And also it's, again, so clearly, and I'm sure ownership's going to reflect it as far as Boston and as far as Toronto. You're talking about playing kind of sort of the chalky pitchers. How do you get different as far as your bats?
I mean, I love the Red Sox and the Blue Jays. Don't get me wrong. I think they're in great spots today. I think they're the 2 top offenses on this slate. Love the White Sox. Mike Minor's going to be 30% owned. The White Sox stack should fly under the radar, especially with Jose Abreu being like expensive like he is. Eloy is going to be popular. Don't get me wrong. So you don't want to typically one off like Eloy at 25% ownership. But I mean, Tim Anderson and Jose Abreu, they're not going to get a ton of ownership here. So I really like the White Sox. And I mean, the Houston Astros are flying under the radar. I keep going back and forth on them, but McCann, he's going to be making his second start. So I think the Houston Astros, if you want to get super different today, they're very interesting as far as that is concerned. And I mean, they're not that expensive. So love the White Sox right there with the Red Sox and the Blue Jays. But yeah, I like Houston and I think Washington. Both of those teams are kind of somewhat interesting.
Yeah, the Washington one on the road, guaranteed 9 innings. Howard's not been good. I'm just curious, is Soto going to be somewhat kind of owned today, or is Harper going to be ignored?
He's so expensive though. Soto's 6,300 on DK.
You like that though, if you want him.
No, I have him in my main lineup right now. I love it. I don't think he's going to get a ton of ownership just because of his price. He's currently projected for under 10% right now. So ballpark upgrade too, going into Philly. This is a much better ballpark for left-handed power bats. So you got to. They built this.
Better? I think of Washington as a number 6 ballpark in the league or something.
Listen, Ryan Howard. This stadium was built for Ryan Howard, man. This is built for left-handed power bats.
Ryan Howard. Oh man.
Remember that guy?
Oh yeah, he was awesome. He was good in The Office too.
Yeah.
Both the character, Ryan. Did you watch The Office, right?
Nope, no Office for me, buddy. I watched 4 or 5 episodes and I couldn't do it because of the camera, the camera work. It bothered me.
You don't like the way it was directed, the one shot. Fair enough. Yeah, so there was a character named Ryan Howard, and then Ryan Howard actually made an appearance on the show too. I don't think they ever addressed it, but just sort of a weird little thing. Devin, when he comes on, he's going to reprimand you. He's going to be very upset. He's a big fan of The Office. He's going to be very angry. You've never watched it. At least you gave it a try, though. I appreciate that.
I did. I gave it a fair shot. I almost did a whole full season.
Wow. I just pulled up the ownership stuff as far as Washington. Yeah, the highest number is Turner at 12%, Bell at 10%, Soto at 9%, Parra, Berea, Harrison, less than 10%. And the Philadelphia side, too, I think it's going to be mostly ignored. Yeah, we're seeing Harper right now at 6% because he's 5'9" on DK, but Ross historically has had, trouble with lefty power, and who knows how long he even probably only sees Harper for 2 at-bats. I'm not expecting him to get him a third time. Realmuto is expensive as far as catcher, so it's going to be mostly ignored. I'm curious what we have as far as the White Sox. Now, we got Eloy at 25%, and that might even be low. 15% for Abreu, which makes a ton of sense to me. We'll talk about positions in a second, but first base, just specifically, first base, you kind of not to go position by position, but it's just not really deep. After Vladdy, it gets ugly pretty fast. No Dahlback for Boston if you're considering him. Not that you love Dahlback, but he is pretty cheap. So no, kind of sort of buried in that lineup. And I talked about, not really loving Minnesota today. Bell is interesting. He's cheap enough, but just the position, right? First is kind of weak, don't you think?
It is. And I mean, Vlad is clearly the top hitter at first base today, but I mean, there's options. Like you mentioned, We'll get into it more when we get to first base, but there's options today. So I really like Vlad, but I mean Abreu's good, and then like we'll get into talking about even maybe looking at some of these Reds bats against Hendricks.
Yeah, there's a BBP guy. Aristides Aquino, 66.666667% of the time, he's hit a homer every time he's faced him. He's 2 for 3 with 2 homers. So Houston, he's in the lineup. He's like 2.2K on FanDuel, and he's batting like 2nd or 4th. There's always a chance he gets the hook at some point for defensive purposes or double swap, or if a lefty comes. No, he usually doesn't start against righties, so I guess he's going to stick around. We'll see. Houston ownership stuff. So Tucker, I think, is going to be higher than 11%. He's 3.4K on DK. That's an egregious price, as far as I can tell. The Houston guys in general are kind of sort of somewhat cheap. Correa, I know he's been scuffling, but he's 4.5. Altuve at 5K. Brantley 3.1. DK hates Brantley. I don't know why. That's just a bad price. And Alvarez is a little bit steep at 5.4, but you can afford that. He's got a pretty good tag on FanDuel. I think he's like 3.7. I'm looking at TK right now, but the Astros feel like the team, and also to West Coast. The lineups aren't out just yet. People like their instant gratification. I want to watch my team right now. I don't want the slate to lock and then chill for 3 hours. I want to see my team play right this second. And I think we've seen that in the past where, like, outside of cores, obviously, but West Coast teams tend to get a little bit lower over ownership. Your general thoughts as far as the Astros? I know you kind of mentioned, you kind of threw them out there, but one of your 3 lineups, have you made like a little mini Houston stack of some sort?
I have a full 5-man stack. Like,
there you go.
It's just kind of looking at it overall. I think they have like the ceiling to win the slate outside of like maybe like a Toronto Boston. It's just the thing, and like Blender talks about this all the time. I hate playing 3 outfielders, but like if you're stacking Houston, you're probably playing 3 outfielders. I mean, so I hate that idea, but yeah, I think that overall, Tucker, Brantley, and Alvarez, like if you're stacking Houston, you want all 3 of those guys. Or maybe leave off of Brantley just because of like how much ownership he's going to get at his price. So Houston lineup just came out, by the way.
Is it as expected?
Altuve, Brantley, Gurriel, Alvarez, Correa, Tucker, Toro, Straw, Maldonado.
Yeah, that's standard. It gets pretty ugly in the back half, but 1 through 6, obviously really solid. Toro's really cheap too, so sure, why not? I wanted to see like what we have. Did you dig into Darren McCocken? McCocken? Is that how do we pronounce that? We're gonna go with that.
I think you nailed it. Nailed it, Dean.
No, it's McCon.
You think it's McCon?
It's McCon. I looked this up last night before the podcast. It's the only reason I know it's McCon.
All right.
I get people that like give me so many hard times about like pronouncing names that like I try sometimes to remember to like look them up beforehand, but it's McCon.
Yeah. Do you have like a read on him, or do we think he's anything?
I mean, he's facing Houston.
Yeah.
Not big time strikeout stuff. Probably not going to pitch too deep into the game. Like he pitched against Colorado in Coors his first start, and it's really tough to kind of judge off of that. But I don't think he had a strikeout. And he's under 20% at AAA this season. So, I mean, like this is a guy that's not going to blow the ball by anybody and miss bats against a Houston team that,
2021 minor league stats so far this season. He started 11 games, 64 innings, 52 strikeouts. So if you're not getting a strikeout an inning in the minors and you're facing a Houston team that, puts the ball in play against everybody, that does seem somewhat concerning to some extent. I'm trying to see how many homers he's yielded as well. 11 homer in 64 innings. That's actually, well, I don't know which organization, what league he's in the minors, but yeah, he's not like a hype prospect in any way either. 12th round pick for what it's worth. And I was looking at the Mariners like list of prospects. I don't think he's like in their top 30 unless I missed him. So
I looked at it too, and I didn't see him out there.
Yeah, he's not. He's just an arm. He's out there to eat some innings. Locked in for 9 as far as the Houston side. Let's go real quickly around the horn. I want to get as many questions in the chat as possible. So let's knock out, catcher first. And you said there was a $2,500 catcher that you had your eye on. So who would that be?
Barnhart, baby. Let's go.
You're excited to play Tucker Barnhart? I'm never excited to play
I'm always excited to play Tucker Barnhart.
Really?
I mean, there's a couple guys today that are cheap enough. Vasquez against Hatch, really like the Red Sox. Talked about it multiple times here. He's batting 7th today. Eric Haas against Michael Pineda. If you want to pay up a little bit at catcher, I think he's in a great spot. Garver, Realmuto, all these guys, really any of the top end catchers. But I mean, if you're going to punt, Tucker Barnhart is not going to come out of the game typically. And I mean, he's 2.5K. So always someone that I'm looking at.
Oh man, catcher is just rough.
What is it? Tres Barrera for Washington too, against Howard. He's another guy that you could potentially look at.
Yeah, I mean, I've played him a little bit, just to kind of make stuff work. And I'm just trying to, am I deciding between him? Like Zavala's still minimum at 2K. Okay. And then there's no pitcher blocking him or behind him, whatever, on the road there. So he's got a really good shot, at least getting 4 at bats. Cal Raleigh's batting 5th, but I don't necessarily want to pick on Garcia. It's Maldonado made the Houston lineup, but catchers.
There's a 2K catcher for the White Sox too, that if you're like stacking the White Sox, you could do a wraparound stack with him and go.
Yeah, Zavala. Yeah.
9, 1, 2, 3. 4.
Perez keeps crushing the ball. Keiko has given up more power and more homers this year, but I think he's given up more than 1 per 9, which historically is not the case. He's usually, he's a heavy ground ball guy, obviously. It's rough. And if you're on the Minnesota side, for sure, get yourself some Garver, have at it. But I'm not going to play a ton of Minnesota, as I've already established. We touched on first base. Do you want to just sort of polish that off, give your final thoughts as far as first? And I really think that like Abreu and Vladdy are so far ahead of the field now. Of course, somebody else that we're not really thinking about, or anybody can be the top guy in baseball. Variance, goofy stuff happens, but ideally that's where I want to be in my main lineups, my cash lineups. Tell me some pivots there as far as first base.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Vlad and Abreu are in such great spots. If you're getting off of those guys, I really don't mind Josh Bell or Joey Votto. I think those guys are okay. But outside of that, man, I feel like Gary L, maybe if you're stacking Houston. But yeah, that's really it for me. That's all.
Gurriel doesn't really feel like a one-off kind of guy. Like you mentioned, you mentioned Gurriel probably in a stack. He doesn't feel like the traditional guy. It's like a one-off. He usually is not going to just do it by himself, and the rest of the team does nothing. What do you have for me as far as second base?
I mean, whoever kind of fits. I mean, second base is so ugly that, Kiki Hernandez is probably the guy that makes the most sense. Harold Castro is super cheap if you want to go there. I mentioned on FanDuel, David Boat is like minimum salary. But yeah, overall, I think second base is just kind of who's in your stack and, who's cheap.
Yeah, I did this tricky thing, and I was trying to figure out my DK lineup, and I wrote up like Kiki Hernandez was one of my favorite plays today. And I'm like, at the same time, I don't even know if he's going to make my main lineup, just because I had the money for Semien, or we can also throw him in the outfield on DK. But I'm like, well, the outfield, I have to save some money somewhere, and I'm saving money on guys like Tucker and Jimenez. But the Badu price is awesome at 3.2K, Duran at 3K. I think that's one way to be different today, is like spend up in the outfield on DK, because Tucker, Jimenez, Badu, Kike, all really good prices. Kepler is a good price in Minnesota as well. Spending up on even George Springer, 4.8 seems too cheap, but spending up on Soto, I know I'm just jumping the outfield, but I think it's interesting and worth noting. Spending up on Harper, spending up on Soto, Yordan Alvarez, Aquino's another one, 2.2K on DK, one more cheapie. I kind of missed in my little rundown. Vaughn also 2.6K. So there's a lot of good cheap hitters. Just get all the cheap stuff in the outfield. I don't really know what to do with Kike, but leading off, biggest the total on the board there against one of the more vulnerable pitchers. And he's been on fire. If you care about guys being hot or not hot, Kike is, I think he was the AL player of the week, I want to say. Good for him. Congratulations. Let's hit the hot corner third base. What do you have for me?
Devers.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I got. You asked me. No, okay, outside of Devers, Donaldson, Bryant, Suarez, if you're looking at potentially stacking the Reds there in the middle of the lineup. But it's Devers for me. I think he's the top hitter on the slate today. Talked about it a lot. in the expert survey, wrote him up on Lineup HQ as well. Just kind of talking about just how much I love this spot for him overall.
Yeah.
This is a big time fly ball guy, and Devers is just a big power guy. So there's going to be hard contact made here. Likely going to get some fly balls. Love his overall like ceiling and upside in this spot.
Yeah, you mentioned Bodie on FanDuel at 2K. I like that. Good power upside. Platoon advantage there against Miley as well. And I think Biggio is cheap enough too. I prefer righty power as opposed to lefty power in Fenway for obvious reasons. That's the way that ballpark is built. But Biggio is 2.5 on FanDuel, 3.5 on DK. Ideally, I want to get the Devers as well. But that's where we're at. And again, I'm going to have less Donaldson in the field. What do you have as far as shortstop?
I mean, shortstop's usually a position that I like to pay up at, but like today, I feel like it's just all over the place. Bo Bichette, I think, is the top shortstop play. Tim Anderson, if you want to get different, he's very good against lefties at the top of that order. Trey Turner, if you're looking at Washington. So I think shortstop's a position that you're going to kind of look at like your stack and just kind of build off of that. Didi against Ross is another guy. And then like cheap, you can go to Diaz or Castro. But I think overall, shortstop's a position you're going to spend up on today.
All right. I already gave my piece as far as the outfield, but you at the outfield. Devin's going to come on in second, and we're going to run down all the questions in chat. If you've not got your question in just yet, by all means, fire it off. Devin's going to grab it, and he'll ask us. More details, the better. If it's DK, if it's FanDuel, if it's cash, if it's tournaments, the more details makes it easier for us to answer the question. Also, while you're here, hit the like button, subscribe, turn on notifications. We would appreciate that as well. Before we have the outfield, Stevie, I was supposed to ask you about just PrizePicks. We get the PrizePicks promo going down. Use the promo code Grinders, Grinders. Your first deposit, 100% deposit bonus up to $100, 100 backers. And Stevie, I believe you've given the people, you picked out a winner for PrizePicks, yes or no?
Yeah, I have a 4-man that I really like today. Well, I have a 3-man that I really like, and I like going 4-man, so I took one that's a little bit riskier. So make sure you guys check that out on PrizePicks. I'm pretty sure that's good till the end of July before the promo switches up. So make sure you're taking advantage of that. But like Juan Soto, over 9 fantasy points over there. Love this spot for him. I think he has a ton of ceiling. Vlad over 9.5 and Devers over 8.5. Those three I really like. I think those are the top 3 hitters on the slate today. You're kind of just hoping for like a couple runs scored or a couple RBIs and maybe a double to hit those fantasy points. So I think that all 3 of those guys, the one that I took that was a little risky, Dean. I took Miguel Sano under 1.5 hits and walks. He's not a dude that typically walks a lot. He strikes out a lot. Even if he hits like one bomb, I could see him going 1 for 5. So I took Miguel Sano under 1.5. But if you want to go, if you want to go with the 3 for, really like Soto, Vlad, Devers over. But I added a 4th because I just like the payout structure better when it's a 4-man or a 5-man over there on PrizePicks than like a 3-man. So make sure you guys check that out.
For the people out there that like my mush pick of the play, my mush is Minnesota. If you guys haven't heard, just the entire team Minnesota. I'm not going to have a lot of Minnesota today. Quickly give me some outfielders, and then we'll bring Devin on.
I mean, Juan Soto, JD Martinez, Bryce Harper, Alvarez. These guys are top end options. Springer, Teoscar, Max Kepler. I know you don't love Minnesota today, but Max Kepler's under 4K batting leadoff against Manning. He's in a really good spot. Brent Roker over there on FanDuel is extremely cheap. He's batting second in that Minnesota lineup today. So Badu is cheap against Michael Pineda. Darren is cheap against Hatch. Tyler Nyquin is cheap against Hendricks. And then we've mentioned it a bunch of times. Eloy Jimenez coming off of the IL, batting 4th today, going up against Mike Minor at 2.5K on DK. So, I mean, outfield is kind of set in stone. You really look at your stacks most of the time, but I mean, Juan Soto is a guy that I think you're trying to pay up for as much as possible today. He's not going to be extremely popular yet.
Yeah, he's a bit pricey, but like for sure worth a big spend there in tournaments. All right, we've teased him enough. Bring on Devin. Take your victory lap, Devin. You took down a nice little GPP over the weekend. Congratulations.
That's on my record permanently.
You can always point to that and say, I once won a
scoreboard.
So
scoreboard.
Take that.
And
There you go.
just for official sake, that was the $5 and the $3 single entry I got first. And then I took
nice.
took second in the $1 single entry.
You can win with just one entry. How about that? You
Look
don't
at
need no
that,
MLB.
yeah. You know what's crazy? I built 20, and then I was like, I saw that one lineup, and I said, you know what? That one looks good. I'll pick that one for it. And it ended up being number 1.
Look at that.
It's just crazy. Things fall the right way sometime.
There you go.
Keep at it, everyone. That's the that's the moral here.
How mad are you at Stevie for not liking The Office? I know you're holding back.
You know, I'm cooled on my fire for The Office because they took it off of Netflix, so it's not readily available for me anymore. So I haven't actually watched it in a long time. Yeah, I mean, I'm mooching off of every family member I have for all these different streaming services, and I somehow don't have a Peacock source yet.
Yeah, I think he's pitching for Seattle today, Peacock.
Oh, yeah?
Is that right?
Are you sure that's not our good friend Darren?
How do you pronounce that? Did I really butcher that one?
It was so
he needs an L in his name somewhere.
It was so reminiscent of that guy.
McCon.
Let's get to some stacks. We're running low on time here, but stacks going off are Colorado. Dean, start with you.
The Colorado stack, I will say 1. I am not on Colorado. 1 being the worst number possible, 5 being you love it. Somewhere in the middle means like you're kind of lukewarm. I got a 1. I don't like it.
I have a 1.
Still
if
1.
I can take 0, I'd take 0.
And Eric here has been beating the drum for the Cubs today. Stevie, what are your thoughts?
I mean, Wade Miley doesn't typically get blown up, so I'd say maybe 2 because of pricing is actually pretty good on the Cubs. But I mean, overall, I don't think they're going to go out and score a ton of runs here against Wade Miley.
2.5. I mean, I get it. I hear you. And it's certainly different, but I mean, it's a neutral environment as far as weather today. As far as it's slightly favorable if you look at Weather Edge. I'm okay with it. I get it just for ownership reasons, but I'm not going to be on it much.
And last one that we got was the White Sox, Dean.
Yeah, especially because if you want to call it leverage, I'm not going to have much minor. If we're close, even close to projecting that number right, I like the White Sox a good bit. If the field's going to have minor a good bit, so give me a 4 on Chicago White Sox.
Yeah, I'm a strong 4 too. I think the only 5s today for me would be like Toronto, Boston. So I think Chicago's the next best at like 4.
I like Toronto. Let's get to some questions. This one's kind of related. Favorite off the board stack for DK tournaments?
Houston. Like we talked about Houston a lot. I don't think they're going to be extremely popular being that late game, the late hammer. Houston. If it's not the White Sox, it's Houston.
Dean?
I'm okay with that. Yeah.
I can already tell I'm going to have to go back and forth on whether or not I'm going to play Darren tonight because I feel like I could probably make a pretty good lineup with him in there, but we'll see.
Darren who now?
Yeah, right. Not a YouTube-friendly name. Let's get to strategy here. Michael wants to know, what's your stacking approach or not stacking the Angels on slates like this when Ohtani is pitching? Does not being able to use his bat make the stack unusable, in your opinion?
I just rarely stack the Angels. I mean, I just don't do it because I think that team's pretty terrible, and I like Marquez. So I understand the question, and it's a good question, but that lineup is, when you can't roster Ohtani, it's really, really weakened. Oh, like Iglesias, and I'm not doing it. There you go. Stevie?
This is a different question if Trout and Rendon are in the lineup, but the lineup as a whole right now, I mean, it's pretty unstackable. You could do like a 2-man of like Upton and Walsh, but I think overall, like the most you can stack the Angels right now is like a 2-man, especially with Ohtani pitching.
All right, we'll do a quick lightning round here. Doug wanted to know, why is the weather edge so down on Detroit, Minnesota, 90 degrees with wind blowing out? I didn't have an answer other than a 17-game sample size, perhaps.
That's the answer. Yeah, it's not a big sample.
Flo, friend of the show, wants to know, DK tournaments, are you locking Garcia? Stevie?
No.
I agree with Dean.
All right.
That's my one agree with Dean, so we're good.
All right.
I'll have some, but I'm not locking it. It's not a bad play, but it's a big price tag.
And
should be fine.
We touched on Wade Miley enough, correct? What were your tournament thoughts into it?
I mean, I wouldn't talk you off of it.
Stevie, if you wouldn't mind taking a look at the late slate and give us a couple of plays for that one. And Dean, for cash on Yahoo, Minor and Altuve or Garcia and Witt?
Okay. I didn't do Yahoo content today, but say those names one more time if you don't mind.
Is Minor and Altuve or Garcia and Witt?
Oh, is that okay? Whit Merrifield.
Yes.
I will take the better pitcher, so I'll take the Garcia side.
All right. Stevie,
for cash.
you need a second?
No, I would just go Otani Marquez for sure. I wouldn't even try to get different. And I mean, Brantley and Tucker are really cheap on that slate as well. I don't hate the idea of maybe playing like a Cal Riley at catcher, like even against Garcia because he's so cheap, and just getting as many of the Houston bats as possible on that late slate. It's only a 2-game slate.
I just want to mention about the single entry series. Is it sold out? It's not sold out. $100 single entry series today. That's like the first tournament I entered today on Rotogrinders, not on Rotogrinders, on FanDuel. 571 people, 421. It's a big contest, $50,000 prize pool, and I believe it's like 5 or 10,000 the first, 5,000 the first. My favorite kind of contest is a big single entry contest with a flat payout, and of course, there's added value of being in the RG single entry series. There's also, if you don't want to spend $100, there's a $2 one going down as well. I cannot enter that, unfortunately, but get in that. There's still 140 spots left, and like I don't know why you wouldn't want to play that. Honestly, there's no. It's just added value. There's no extra hit there. There's no reason. There's no gimmick. Just play it.
Dean always says, if I'm going to spend $100 on FanDuel tonight, that's going to be my first place I spend my $100.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I can play in 10 of those contests. I wish I can just stay in that wheelhouse. But
all right, we're
unfortunately
running out of time, Dean. But Alan wants to know, you tweeted a GIF last week for Richard's sticky stuff check. What was that? That was pretty funny, actually.
I don't know where that is from. It was an attendant at some game recently, and I did say I was going to answer him. I didn't, and I apologize.
Follow up on Twitter later on.
Yeah, follow up on Twitter. I forget. I'll figure it out. I'll let you know soon enough. But Crunch Time around the horn. It's STL Cards, and it's a 2-time millionaire winner. Cheese is good. Dave Potts, he's pretty awesome with this as well. Take you guys straight up to lock. Kevin Roth will be there as well. If there's any weather issues, that said, we do appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Just be asked for, hit the like button. You can subscribe if you want. Just hit the like, subscribe, turn on notifications, all that good stuff. That was Stevie. That was Devin. That was baseball. I was Dean. We're out of here. Holler.